What are you most afraid of? What's your biggest fear? Is it fear of heights, fear of failure, fear of judgment of those around you, fear of being made fun of, or is it all of the above? We all struggle with fear, right? And in many ways, we let fear drive our lives. We let fear become the central engine which moves our life ahead. But what we also don't realize is that if you let fear drive your every single move, if you let it become your engine, you are constraining yourself from truly reaching your potential and also from living your most fulfilled life. Because oftentimes, true opportunity, true happiness, true many of the best things in life lie across almost that roadblock of fear. And that's what I want to talk to you about because I have been afraid of many things throughout my life. Everything I just spoke about earlier, I'm afraid of all those things. But over time, I have figured ways and methods to help me move ahead in my own journey or in my own relationship with fear. And I wanted to share five of those with you. Five of those which have almost become central, pillars for me in my day-to-day relationship with fear and how I deal with it. I'm Varun Duggirala, and this is Take a Pause. And just so that I overcome my fear of fumbling, I'm making sure this is a no cut episode. Everything that I'm going to say is going to be straight from start to end. It's going to be raw, it's going to be real. And that's a way for me to overcome my own worry that maybe what I'm going to say isn't going to be the best version of what I need to create. So here goes. But before we go there, I want to make sure you hit subscribe and smash the bell icon and straight into my first key learning about fear. One of the first things you have to ask yourself is that when you have fear driving you, what you end up doing is you end up procrastinating. You end up being static. It's like how like you freeze, right? You don't move and you stay where you are. And what happens when you freeze is you believe I am safer if I don't move. It's almost like you've seen that deer in headlights example where the deer in the middle of the road and just freezes, thinking that the car won't hit it. But what we often need to think about is that what is the cost of our inaction versus the cost of action, because we are so fearful of the action and what result it might have that we don't act. But what we don't think about is what happens if I don't act. you know Tim Ferriss has this interesting method which he spoke about. He's been speaking about for years. He spoke about it in his TED talk. He's spoken about it in his blog, where he talks about the practice of fear setting. Fear setting is a practice where you note down all the ways in which your fears are driving you. You list down all your fears. You don't just list down all your fears. What you also list down is that you put down the cost of acting on those fears, saying, I'm afraid of heights, or I'm afraid of public speaking. If you're afraid of public speaking, what happens if you actually go speak in public on stage? Then also write down what happens if you don't face that fear. What if you never get on that stage? What happens if you never truly put yourself out there and take that action? And don't just think about today. Think about what happens a year down the line, 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line. If you choose inaction over action, what happens to you? And when you list those down, in many of these cases, you realize that the cost of inaction is far higher than the cost of action. You know, for years, I had this incident very early on in my life, in my first or second grade, where I got on stage and I froze. It was one of those fancy dress competitions. And, I was very excited, got on stage and just couldn't do it. I just stood on stage and I just said, I don't want to. And I ran off stage. And it took me years to get back. It took me years to get back. And I eventually became a creator at the age of 36. Even when I was an entrepreneur, I preferred to handle the back end, preferred to handle operations because I didn't want to be in front. I was so afraid of just getting out there in front of things. But the more I've started to do this, the more I've actually realized that all those years, maybe I would have been able to find the level of confidence that I found today compared to all the self doubt that was driving me, all the fear that was driving me at that point of time. And I always thought that I would fail. I always thought that, if I give in to this, if I actually go out and put myself in front, um, everything that could possibly go wrong will go wrong. It's like the Stoic philosopher Seneca says that we struggle, or rather, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. All the things that we think will go wrong are in our head. Write them down on paper and say, these are my fears. This is what I might happen if I act on them. And this is what happen if I don't act on them. You suddenly seem to weigh things out and you have clarity, because when you define what happens, you can prepare for it. You can prepare for getting on stage and talking. You can, you know, prevent all the things that you feel will go wrong when you go on stage. What will you do? You'll forget what you have to say. Like I have notes here, I'm peeking at them from time to time, because just in case I forget, it's okay for me to look. You're not judging me because I'm looking at my notes, are you? Because what I'm giving you is something that you are learning from. And it's about that. It's about understanding it, preparing yourself, and looking at what you can prevent yourself from failing. The second thing I've actually learned about managing and working with fear is about choosing curiosity over fear. In the book Big Magic, um, Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this. Right? She says that you can either let fear drive your life, or you can allow curiosity to drive your life. If you let fear drive your life, you stick to a path that you feel is safest, that nothing can go wrong over there, and you never give in to trying things. But if you take a curiosity mindset, if you choose curiosity over fear, what you tend to do is to say, okay, 1 second, I'm not taking a big decision. I'm not suddenly saying this is my purpose in life. This is the new path I'm taking. Like, okay, I'm walking on this path. Maybe I'll check out what's happening here. Maybe I'll check out what's happening there. Maybe I'll look around a little bit and truly ask myself that I might just discover something new. Is the price of me failing by being curious about something new higher than me just trying to stick to my path? And we also feel this way, let's be honest, because we all want to do everything perfectly. It's not just a fear of failure. We all worry and we all struggle with this simple thought process of the fact that we need everything to be perfect. We feel if it's not perfect, it's a failure. And so we don't even try things because we think that we won't be perfect at them. We often try to make sure we don't fail at things versus trying to do a good job with them. Because sometimes trying to do something well and trying to do a good job with something leads you down a path of looking at it and thinking about it mindset wise a certain way, which is very different from how you look at it if you're just focused on making sure you don't fail. Because you will take so many choices, not because that's the way you should ideally be doing it, but that's the only way you think you will not fail. And so the next time you find yourself, being driven by fear, just tell yourself that, like William Faulkner said, be scared, but don't be afraid. Being scared is normal. We're all scared of many things. But when you're afraid of something, you're allowing it to drive you. Choose curiosity. Say, I'm curious about this. I want to learn something about it. I've always been a curious person, but I've realized that curiosity can actually give you so many benefits. It can give you so much happiness and joy in the weirdest of ways. So this is a watch I got myself recently, right? Because I've been fascinated with watches for a while now. And I started reading about the history. I was curious. So I started reading about the history. I started looking into, you know, different stories and different things. And I realized that watches were initially tools for people. They weren't necessarily just something you wear on your wrist. It's not a fashionable thing. It was a tool. So I went down the rabbit hole of tool watches. And I found out that there was a particular kind of watch that people, rather soldiers in World War I and World War II wore. And this watch is based on that. And that story is something which I find so fascinating, right? So it's about that. Is this going to give me some material benefit in my life? No. Is this something that's going to cost me a huge amount of failure? No. But the fact that I know this has helped me use curiosity as a tool. And the more you use it, the more you will choose curiosity over fear. And when you have to make a larger decision because you're so used to being curious, your obvious choice becomes curiosity. So a great way for you to flip that script and to move from fear to curiosity is to keep practicing it in the lowest, like, and the weirdest ways, like I do with watches now and with many other things, and toys and stuff. So choose that first, and the more you do it, the more you practice it, the more you make it your daily discipline, the more you will move towards curiosity over fear. What's the next one? What's the next thing which I've actually learned is that we always, and we all fear this, we all fear being judged by other people. You know, we are so worried that anything we do, anything we say, anything that happens to us will be judged by those around us. And, you know, David Foster Wallace said this. He said that what we will all stop worrying about what people think of us when we realize how rarely they actually do. Because people aren't thinking about us all the time. You know, you might be in a room with so many people, but it's not like they're focused only on you. It's not like they're only saying, "Oh, I know what you've done right now. I know what you said right now. I'm judging you for what you're saying right now." It's like the spotlight effect, right? You walk into a room and you think everyone's looking at you, but they aren't. They're worried about how everyone's looking at them. And this, in many ways, leads you to make choices which are people pleasing because you want everyone to like us. Our innate fear of being judged by those around us leads us down a path of doing what we think they expect of us, what we think they want us to do, what we think will make them judge us less and less. But what you need to think about is the fact that the more you act for reasons that you believe someone is, I should do this or I need to do this, you are moving away from that singular thing that is a decision only you should be making, which is I want to do this or I don't want to do this. Because those are the only two choices you have in your life. I want to do this or I don't want to do this. When you get into the shoulds, when you get into the I need to's, you're pushing yourself to make decisions which are driven by how you want to be perceived by other people. Even if you're doing something for someone else, because you really want to do it, you're doing it. If you don't want to do it, you're not doing it. And that comes from a singular point of you telling yourself that you are enough, that you as an individual, as a person, are enough. You will have flaws, you will have weaknesses, and you'll also have strengths. You'll also have things you're great at. But as long as you truly believe that you are enough, you will stop worrying about being judged by those around you. And, you know, and it's almost an activity I've seen many people do, right? It's about looking at yourself in the mirror and telling yourself that. It's about having that conversation with yourself and saying, you know, let me just focus on my strengths. Let me just focus on the things I can do really well. Let me build that trust in myself so that I truly believe I'm enough. And the more I believe I am enough and more you believe you are enough, you will worry far lesser about how people will judge you. You will feel a lot more confident. You will feel, in many ways, you will focus on things which you expect of yourself and not what other people expect of you. And it doesn't mean you're not social. It doesn't mean you aren't, connected to a community. What it actually means is the more you become like this, you will end up acting in ways, and it happens naturally to many people. It's happened naturally to me. Is that I do for people what I wish they did for me, and without expectation. I wish everybody was nice to me, so I'm nice to them. I'm not expecting that from. I wish people didn't judge me, so I don't. I try my best not to judge other people. The more you practice it, it's almost like this weird um, mirror that the more you act a certain way with other people, they act that back to them. Human beings are like mirrors; they reflect back towards you. So the more you act towards them the way you want them to, radiate back to you, again without expectation, it somehow seems to come back towards you. And that doesn't just move away judgment, it also moves us towards one of the most important aspects of dealing with fear. That is, you don't necessarily have to leap past fear. You don't necessarily have to, you know tell yourself that, oh, I got to conquer all my fears today. I will, if I'm scared of heights, I'll do like a skydive today. That, well, that might work for many people, they call it ripping off the band-aid, but it also puts a lot of pressure on you. It's like, one of my favorite creators of all time, Casey Neistat, says, do what you can't. If you tell yourself that as a daily practice, as a daily routine, you will do one thing that you're afraid of, that you will face one fear today in the smallest possible way. If you fear the dark, can you spend like 5 minutes in the dark? If you fear sitting alone by yourself, which is honestly scary for many people, including me, I mean, I can't meditate for long periods because I'm still have a fear of just sitting alone by myself. Give yourself 5 minutes, then make that 10 minutes, then make that 15 minutes. Make it a daily practice to build a relationship with your fear, not by leaping, but by taking tiny steps. And the more you take these tiny steps, almost like you did as a kid, right? Almost as you did as a child, where, as kids, we aren't scared of trying new things. Right? Imagine babies, the amount they progress on a daily basis from, being from being born to learning how to crawl, to learning how to walk, to learning how to talk. They take tiny baby steps every day. But at some point, we stop taking those baby steps. But maybe that's one thing we all have to make sure we do on a daily basis, because those small baby steps really help us build a system that helps us look at fear as, someone who's sitting in the car, that is, or rather the train of our life, but it's not really driving the engine. It's sitting in one of the bogies, right? It's that friend you have who you can't let go of, but you're just saying, okay, I'm okay to have you around, but I don't want you to drive my life. And the last thing which has really helped me in my relationship with fear is for me to learn to trust myself. You know, for me to truly learn to love myself. Self love is tough, right? Self love is not something that comes naturally to us. People tell us, "Oh, I love myself," but do you truly? You know, and it's not about, um, saying I love myself and doing certain corny things, which also are great. Like, if you can tell yourself you love yourself on in the mirror every day, that can help you reinforcing that in your mind. But trusting yourself comes by giving your mind actual evidence, by giving your mind actual proof that you can do the things that you do, that you stand by the things that you say you do. So if you say, I'm a person who wakes up on time in the morning, but you don't really do it, the mind doesn't trust you, because you're not giving it evidence to prove that you are a person who will do that. In the same way, if you are a person who says that I'm there for my friends all the time, but are you truly there for your friends all the time? Because your mind decides things and pushes you and makes you think basis the evidence you give it. The more evidence you give it to trust you, to say that what you say and what you do connect, what you say you can do and what you can actually do connect, starts trusting you. And from that trust comes one of your most important tools to work with fear, and that is confidence. You become more confident. And like Adam Grant says in the book Think Again, you learn to find the right kind of confidence, because confidence has two things and you need to balance both of them out. On one side, you need to truly believe you can do what you are saying you are planning to do. But what it also means is that you have the humility to admit that you might not have all the tools required to do it. You might not have everything that you need to do what you set out to do, and that you have to learn, that you have to progress, you have to on a daily basis enhance your craft. And if you balance these two right, seeing things and believing them, but also realizing that you aren't always 100%, that you are flawed, that builds true confidence. That also stops you from, you know, running in front of those headlights, from making those mistakes. From it helps you guard yourself from all the things that you actually fear will happen. So you don't suddenly go from being driven by fear to being driven by overconfidence, right? You got to be driven by confidence. You got to be driven by curiosity, and all these things only happen through building the right kind of trust, through looking at how you live your life, taking those baby steps on a daily basis. Because the people who are the right kind of confident aren't as bothered about other people's judgment. They're they're living their most authentic lives because they're living the lives they want to lead. They're living their lives the way they want to live it. They're not driven by people pleasing. They're not giving into procrastination or pessimism. They're also not trying to be something they are not because they want to be safe rather than doing and living the way they want to live. So these are the five things I want to share with you. These are the five things I've learned in my own relationship with fear. And I was hoping they will help you as well. I'm going to share a lot more insights like this on a regular basis with all of you. So I can share everything which I've learned, everything that's on my laptop here if you're watching this on YouTube, in my notes across the board. So I can give you all the tools that I have discovered in my own relationship with everything in my mind, everything in my life. So you can use it in yours, and hopefully not take as long as I did to really understand and build my own relationship with fear. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoy this episode, I'm going to ask you to hit subscribe and smash the bell icon, and tune in also for some of the conversational episodes we do on the show, where I speak to truly interesting people and get insights into how they've built this toolbox for themselves, so you can use that as well in your life. So till the next one, make sure that you take those baby steps, build your relationship with fear, and whenever you are confused, take a pause and think about it.